I want to simplify the things that I take off-road, meaning that I want to get rid of propane almost entirely if I can. And I want to try to switch as many different systems that I need off-road to go full electric. We're going to install 700 watts of solar. We're going to install 2 actual RV batteries. It's not like they're just deep cycle. No, these are like 6-volt RV batteries. They're AGM. We're going to talk about lithium versus AGM. We're going to talk about solar chargers, controllers, inverters. This is going to be a very nutrient-dense video, so if you want details on how all this works, this is definitely the video to watch. In my opinion, a good off-road or off-grid power system is going to start with the batteries, and then even before that, you got to figure out like weight allocation. Where are you going to place these batteries, and how is that going to change the way the vehicle handles? And in this case, we've got 2 massive 6-volt batteries. These things are super heavy. They have got a ton, or they can store a ton of energy, and I want to make sure that that weight is very well applied in the vehicle. So we've got it very low in the chassis, far forward so that it's just kind of spread across the suspension, and we hopefully won't feel it once we get on the road. There's a ton of nuance in this topic, and I do not want to make like a 10-minute long video all about battery tech. So here's the cliff notes on a very controversial discussion, and that is AGM versus lithium. We're using AGM in this battery system because we pretty much have to. Lithium is amazing technology, and I'm absolutely going to use it in a future build. But when it comes to something that has to be extremely durable, like let's just say, for instance, you're mounting your batteries on the outside of your cab underneath, and they're gonna get packed with snow, you gotta go AGM. Because lithium is extremely sensitive to a bunch of different environmental conditions. It's very easy to overcharge them, it's very easy to undercharge them. If you charge them under 32 degrees Fahrenheit, or if you discharge them under 0 degrees Fahrenheit, you can damage the batteries. Whereas AGM, if you get to these extreme temperatures, you're gonna see a drop in performance, but you won't destroy the battery. You'll see mining trucks in Alaska at -50 running AGM batteries just fine. They're amazingly durable. And because cargo space is so precious to me in this build, I'm mounting the batteries outside of the vehicle. They're gonna get packed with snow. They're gonna see extreme temperature swings and all this other stuff. Obviously, AGM is the way to go for this build. But lithium is so rad. So I don't want to discourage anybody from using lithium. And like I said, you will see me use it in a future build, but it's going to be a build that's going to make sense, and you're going to see why when we get there. Now, I decided to go 6-volt instead of 12-volt. When you're using a very high quality AGM battery, they both should be built to basically the same like durability standards. But because of my experience with RVs and campers, I used those both came with 12 volts. It was unbelievable how easy it was to destroy the life of these 12-volt battery, deep cycle batteries. And then when I switched out to 6-volt, you could have all the little oopsies you want. When I say oopsie, I mean like your wife leaves the light on because she goes out to the RV to get a towel or something, and it drains the house batteries to literally 0. They bounce back like nothing ever even happened, at least in my experience. Whereas the 12-volt batteries, I mean, you do that once and you notice a difference in like how much charge these batteries would take. And we had other things too, like water pump failure, where the water pump just for whatever reason just started running and like cavitating, and it did that for like a week and a half, and then just again burned the battery down to 0. But with my 6-volt batteries, they lasted. So because of that, I chose to go with 6-volt, because when I'm thinking of how I want to use this Land Rover, and I'm thinking of this system specifically, I want it to be the most durable setup that I could possibly get. And so I'm willing to make a lot of compromises over a great technology in order to have my cake and, I don't know, eat some of it. The next decision we need to make is battery management. And this is a very important one, because if you buy a quality battery, let's say you invest in a very nice high-end battery, you don't want to screw that thing up because you bought the cheapest, Amazon special type of DC to DC charger, and then it has some sort of a hiccup and overcharges or undercharges something. So in our instance, we're using the Battery Manager 30 from RedArc. It's 30 amps, and what's really cool about this is that it's got shore power, it has solar, and it'll charge off of the car battery. But if I'm driving through the desert and I've got tons of sun, it actually favors the solar before it takes anything out of the alternator, which is really nice because then it's less of a load on your engine system and you're just getting free power falling from the sky. We are looking at 200 400, and with this 300 watt solar blanket, we're looking at a potential of 700 watts of solar panels. And I know that that's going to need some explanation and how I decided to get to that number and everything. But first, I've got to figure out how to mount these hard panels on the roof. The industry standard for solar panels these days seems to be monocrystalline, and that's what these are. If you go with any like higher end manufacturer, it seems like that's what they're all using. So this is certainly standard based on everything that I've seen. My plan here changed a couple of times. I thought about utilizing some crossbars that go from one side to the other of my rooftop tent, but eventually we ended up just using some different aluminum raw materials that we had laying around the shop to bolt things together. And then I used like the clamps from those crossbars, if that makes sense, to mount to the tent. And then we used some aluminum angle to make everything nice and rigid and solid. These panels to be solid up there, and I can't just trust glue alone. And you also need to maintain some sort of an air gap underneath the panel so they can cool in the summertime. So this is the best combination of things that I could come up with to make sure that these are married to the rooftop tent. I cheated and I've already had this out, but I want to walk through how the solar has turned out. So these are the different connections that are going from inside the vehicle to up onto the rooftop tent. 2 of them are solar, 2 of them are power going into the tent. So check this out. We got a whole lot of panel up here. I used some brackets to bolt it to the outside here, right there. We just used some angle aluminum to mount it into our solar panels. It's bolted together in between each panel, and then I used some angle aluminum here just to make it rigid, and I wanted some center support. The silicone is not what's holding the panel up here. It's being held in because it's bolted in on the outside. The silicone is just to keep the center support from vibrating up and down. So we've been able to turn, let's get up a little higher. I got a tall ladder. We've been able to turn these 2 individual pieces essentially into one and take up like every square inch of roof space that we have on top of this rooftop tent. Even in the shop, I'm getting watts like coming in through the solar panels. And it's because, yeah, it's pretty surprising. I've got like anywhere between 4 and 6 watts. It's fluctuating like 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6. And it's because it's so much panel. That's not very many watts for those of you that don't know. But the point is that there's so much panel up there that we're even able to generate electricity from the lights in my shop. So that the whole point of this is that on days where it's overcast, especially days where we're not necessarily traveling all day, because the way the system is set up, it's going to be charging these batteries as I'm driving, but this is a lot of battery to charge if I run them like way down because it's a cold night, I'm using my heater all night, or I'm cooking using electric, whatever I want to do. To have the flexibility of solar panels that are going to automatically charge while you're driving or automatically charge when the sun comes up. Let's say we sleep in a little bit and the sun's up for a couple hours, like in the summertime. To have it already be topping batteries off, to me, is a giant benefit. But I have 400 watts on the roof, and I have a 300 watt panel that is like a blanket. This guy, I'm gonna unfold onto the hood, open it all up. This is 300 watts. So that's 700 watts worth of panel, which I would, if I'm getting like over 300 out of just the ones on the roof, I wouldn't whip this out. But if it's like a cloudy day and I'm like getting like 75, 80, 100 watts, and I wanna be able to charge, I have the flexibility of adding another panel. I just open up on the hood, I plug into my Gold Wing window, I put a little port over there, and now we have more solar to absorb more free energy. There's a lot of instances where I think this will be handy, there's also a lot of instances where this just isn't necessary. Like really long days, if we're driving for like 10 or 12 hours, probably enough juice coming from the alternator to charge these batteries back up. But on days where it's short, or let's say I break down in the woods and I'm waiting on parts for a couple days or something, having free energy that falls from the sky is valuable for like all those scenarios. So to me, solar is really valuable on the right rig. I wouldn't put it on all of my camping rigs, but I'm definitely gonna put it on this one just because of like, it's my winter camping setup. This is what I wanna start using for like most of my snow trips locally, and so having a lot of power is gonna be super valuable. This is a little bit unorthodox, but on connection points that are outside of the vehicle, I like to fill those fittings with solder just because I feel like if it's full of solder, it's gonna be harder for like road salt and stuff to get into the fitting and like corrode it. So for whatever reason, that's just the way that I decide to do it. And then on the inside, I pretty much crimp every single fitting. But sizing the wire for your system correctly is extremely important. I've already made a video on this topic. It's a few years old now, but the information still holds up. So I will link that in this video if you want to learn a little bit more about how to size the wire for your particular system.
Okay, Daddy?
You want me to sleep for 3 more minutes with you? I can't just get up?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Okay, we can sleep for 3 more minutes.
Okay.
My first real-world test was using a small 12-volt heater all night. I choose 12-volt most of the time because then there's no power lost in the inversion to another voltage. So we ran it all night, and I was excited to get down and take a peek at the red arc system just to see how accurate it is on like battery level. I think I hooked something up wrong because that says 99 or 100%, but when you go over here, we're at only 11.8 volts. So, and we got a low voltage warning here. We did have power all night in the tent, which was great, but I need to figure out what I hooked up wrong so I can make sure that the battery drain is accurate on the screen. This little black square with the 2 wires coming out of it is a battery sensor, and I had this hooked up backwards. I fixed it, and then I've been waiting for many months for there to be a sunny day where I'm in town. And now we have reached that point, and even though I filmed this like in November, here in February, I'm finally in a position where I can finish this video. Welcome to a sunny day here in the Pacific Northwest. Just because it's not raining actively or snowing on top of me. It's extremely windy up in the trees, you can probably hear that. But I wanted to do a test where, like, this is normal winter camping conditions for us. How much juice are we making with these solar panels? I got the inverter going, so my 110, I've got a 110 plug here, and then I have a 110 plug up in the tent. I also have a 12-volt plug here, one on the backside as well, and then another 12-volt plug in the cab. So with this 12-volt heater, this does not produce a lot of heat, but because it's insulated up there, it makes it to where it holds this very little bit of heat very, very well. And what's nice about it being 12 volt is that my batteries that are underneath here are in 12 volt. And so because we don't have to invert, we're not losing any battery, we'll just call it fuel, any battery, you know, juice in that inversion. So right now we have big wires that are going into our inverter. And by the way, this is all gonna be like, I'm gonna build an organizer into this, so you won't even be able to see any of this once that's done. But this is going into the inverter. This is inverting to 110 volt, and that there is energy lost in that inversion that is not making it to our heater. We are using, geez, it's kind of hard to tell. We are using 40 amps between both heaters, and looks like we're taking in 50 watts from the sky. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but dude, I'm telling you, with the little mobile battery banks and stuff, I have set up in weather like this with just like one 100 watt panel, you get 0 watts, no joke. You need a ton of panel in order to even make 50, 51 watts. That's enough to run my fridge if the fridge was running right now, if I had the fridge installed. Not quite enough to run this. This pulls about 120 to 140 watts. But we are getting free energy raining down on us from the sky. So now I want to set up the solar blanket and see if we can pull any more with that blanket. What's nice about this blanket is it's super compact. At first I was like, this is heavier than it needs to be, but once I set it up in the wind, I was actually kind of glad it was heavy so it wouldn't just blow away. And it just plugs into an Anderson fitting extension cord and then through something that I put in the gull wing. 89 watts, 90 watts, not bad at all. I know that doesn't sound like much, but look at these conditions. I mean, this is terrible. So 300 watts on the hood did definitely make a difference. And we have 700 watts worth of panel, but we couldn't get 700 watts out of that unless we're like, it's perfect conditions, we're near the equator, everything is pointed at direct sunlight. And as you can see, I just have like this little extension cord here that plugs into the Red Arc solar blanket. And on Amazon, I had found these little like covers. So it gives us a really clean connection point, which I love. And then this makes it to where we can actually charge the Red Arc system just off of a 110 volt. This is the cleanest way I could come up with to get all of our power needs in and out of there. But 90 watts, I think is, I mean, I couldn't expect more than that on a day this cloudy. And I promise you, if I use like a Jackery or something like that on a day like today with just one panel, I have done this. It reads so few watts, it doesn't charge at all. You have to go over a certain threshold for it to start charging. And I know it seems like it might be a lot of work, but once you get the solar panels installed on the roof, you know, the solar blanket is just there for any of those days where you need that little bit of extra help to collect sun through conditions like this. I gotta be honest, a lot of new tech that comes with apps like fridges and stuff, I'm not the guy to use that kind of thing. This I felt like was gonna be the exact same way, but I've already found this really valuable. It's nice that when I'm driving, I can keep track of how much battery I am charging throughout the day. Like I said, I installed all this like 4 months ago. I've been out a whole bunch since then, and I've been able to really like put this through its paces. And I gotta say, I'm extremely happy that I can just open up an app and it's super easy. I just click on the app and it automatically links. I'm not doing anything crazy. It just powers up, and without running any extra wires, I have a gauge of how much juice I have left and how fast I'm charging and whatnot. That kind of data can be really helpful when you're traveling, because you could see, hey, if I drive for like another 20 minutes, I'll have 100% battery. Maybe we'll just, you know, keep going up and explore a little bit, and then we'll come back and then we'll set up camp. It's nice to have that kind of information. So that's something that I've felt is pretty powerful. One other thing that I want to note is that just because I have 700 watts with a panel doesn't mean that this system can take 700 watts. And if you buy something non-Red Arcy, like read the instructions and see how much it could take. If I remember correctly, this can take like 540 watts of solar at a time. That's awesome. So if I'm in Southern California, it's like perfect conditions outside. We got nice blue skies, but I need to charge my batteries in a hurry. I've got 400 on the roof. I would bet that I would get like 380 or something like that out of it, like on a perfect day. I can throw that blanket out and I could just roll out as much as I need to get to like, let's say 480 or 500. And then I'll just leave that last little bit closed to make sure that I'm not, you know, going over what is recommended for this unit to take. So I've thought about how I would address that, but it hasn't been sunny enough for me to run into that problem. Right now, it's just all about taking as much panel as I can, pointing it up, and hoping that I can charge these batteries. Again, I know 90 watts doesn't sound like a lot, but dude, this is free energy from the sky, and I can think of many different instances in which this is gonna help me out. Also, with the batteries, this is outside of the Red Arc system. Because I chose the batteries that I did, and because they're so, let's just say they're so durable, I can use these to jump the starter battery. It would be cool to rig something up where I could just push a button and then it jumps the house batteries to the starting battery. But right now, I could just take a set of jumper cables, go negative on one battery, positive on the other battery. I've got 12 volts. Now I hook that up to the truck. Boom, I can jump it. I don't know enough about lithium yet to know which batteries you can and cannot comfortably do that with without worrying about destroying the battery. Not all lithium is considered equal for sure. So now I guess the next part is get the Land Rover done and reliable, and I have a manual transmission to swap into it and a new motor and all that. So I think that the electrical system is pretty well done. This Land Rover is moving its way to becoming something really cool, and this electrical system that we just installed and this like heat that we can have inside the tent, and these features are just making this even cooler than it was before. I'm falling in love with this thing in a way that doesn't even make sense. I'm falling in lust with this thing, let's say that. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know that this one is not going to be wildly popular, but there's a lot of you out there that have asked questions about solar stuff, and this was just such a perfect vehicle to talk about the different options and how I would set one up for the Pacific Northwest. So here it is. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on the next one.